Welcome to the layer-by-layer poetic features for Psalms 9 and 10. Our goal is to reveal the distinctive beauty and power of the original text of Psalms 9 and 10 as the next best thing to knowing Hebrew yourself. Our three features are: first, order threatened; second, the Lord was prepared; and third, a fortress and a pit. We'll begin with order threatened. Alphabetic acrostic psalms are poems in which the strophes or sections are indicated by the first letter of the first line following the order of the Hebrew alphabet. This structure symbolizes order and completion by using the complete alphabet. In Psalms 9 and 10, the alphabetic acrostic is disrupted by the presence of the wicked, who threaten the very structure of the poem itself. The alphabetic acrostic is a well-known poetic device in Hebrew, used in such different circumstances as Psalm 119, the magisterial celebration of the law, and Lamentations, grieving the devastation of Jerusalem. In each case, the form represents the order that God's way brings to life. In Psalms 9 and 10, that seems to start well, but disorder rears its head. There are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, and if the opening verses were to set the pattern, each letter should get one strophe consisting of 2 verses. As with most patterns in poetry, the interest lies in the places that do not follow the pattern exactly. The third strophe, for the letter Gimel, includes the first instance of the word wicked. The strophe only ends up being 1 verse. In addition, the next letter, Dalet, is skipped, and the next strophe, Hey, is also only 1 verse. It's as if the order of the psalm were heavily disrupted at first, and then is struggling to recover. This is the first disruption, centered on the letter Dalet. The next strophe, for the letter Waw or Vav, has 4 verses. Structurally, it compensates for the missing verses from the Gimel and Hey strophes. The next poetic feature will discuss what prompts this compensation. The alphabet then continues, with the letters Zayin, Chet, Tet each having 2 verses. The wicked appear again at the end of the Tet strophe. The wicked appear in both the last line of the Tet strophe and the first of the Yod strophe. If the Yod strophe is considered to be a full 2 verses, then the next letter is skipped altogether, and instead comes a strophe with no alphabetic connection at all. This second disruption would then center on the letter Kaf. These disruptions, on Dalet and perhaps on Kaf, are minor compared to what happens next. Historically, the alphabet was memorized in 2 parts. The first part was what we see in Psalm 9. The second part began with Lamed, the 12th letter. This opening to the second part of the alphabet is also the letter opening Psalm 10, but the Lamed strophe is only 2 lines, and then chaos ensues with the alphabet. Starting with verse 2 of Psalm 10, the wicked pursue their wickedness with abandon, and for 10 verses the alphabet is lost. In verse 12, however, everything is restored to proper order, as the wicked cease to be the subject. Instead, the Lord's response becomes the topic. The rest of the alphabet appears without interruption, even with mention of the wicked. In verse 15, the text reads about seeing the wickedness of the one who is wicked and evil, but not finding it. From that point on, no mention of the wicked recurs. The wicked disrupted the order of the alphabet 3 times if the Kaf strophe is considered to be missing. The first disruptions were with Dalet and Kaf, and then a series of 6 letters. The letters Dalet and Kaf together spell the word oppressed, Dach, which we find in the very last verse of Psalm 10. The picture is of a disruption that results first in oppression, then in an attempt at obliterating the order altogether with 6 letters missing. The disruption fails, however. The Lord notices and takes action, and then it is wickedness that is obliterated, not order. At that point, no matter how hard you look for wickedness, you will find none, because it has been eliminated. We'll move now to the second poetic feature. The Lord was prepared. The alphabet acrostic mentioned above is even more intricate. The missing letters do all occur before and after the actual mention of wicked in the poem. Order was present before, and order is restored afterwards. What prompts the change is God rising up and breaking the power of the wicked. In the alphabetic acrostic, 8 letters were missing their strophes: Dalet, Kaf, and then the series of 6, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pe, Tzadi. All 8 of these missing letters occur together in one verse, twice in the full poem, in verse 5 of Psalm 9 and in verse 18 of Psalm 10. Verse 5 at the beginning is immediately before the first mention of the wicked and the first disruption of the alphabet. The poetic message is that order was fully present before the wicked, and the intentional inclusion of all those letters just before the wicked person enters hints that God, the author of the order, was fully aware and fully prepared for the entry of the wicked. He was not surprised. The very last verse of Psalm 10, verse 18, also has all the missing letters, once wickedness has been eliminated and the word no longer appears in the Hebrew. The wicked may appear to reign supreme during their tenure, but the poetic message is that not only will the wicked be eliminated, but full order will be restored. The letters missing in their proper strophes will be redeemed, as it were, and still included in the poem. They have not been forgotten. The word made of the first 2 letters, Dalet and Kaf, is a word for the oppressed. In the poem, there was every appearance of those letters having been lost, as if God had lost sight of the oppressed and no longer cared, letting the wicked oppress without accountability. But they were not forgotten, and they received justice in the end. The source of this justice is the other half of this feature. The name of the Lord appears after every disruption and signals the restoration of order. In verse 6 of Psalm 9, the wicked first appear, causing one letter to be skipped and another skipped or truncated. But in verse 8, the Lord appears with an extra long strophe, restoring the missing verse in the previous strophes. Earlier strophes lost lines, but now they are recovered. Similarly, in verses 17 and 18, the wicked appear, prompting the second disruption. David calls on the Lord in verses 20 to 21, providing extra verses to compensate for those previously lost. Throughout the lengthy disruption after the Lamed that opens Psalm 10, the Lord's name appears only once. But soon it is rejected in the wicked's own words. There is no God. Thereafter, there is no name of the Lord, only a version of God. The first appearance of the divine name, in verse 12, brings with it the complete restoration of order. After the last occurrence of wicked in verse 15, we see that the Lord is king forever. And from then on, not only is there order, but the wicked has also been eliminated. The Lord knew the wicked would come. He was prepared, he dealt with them, and he restored everything to order with wickedness completely banished. Such is the story of this alphabetic acrostic. The third poetic feature is a fortress and a pit. David was a master of overlapping poetic features. In Psalm 9, in addition to the alphabetic acrostic, many more poetic devices are at play. Psalm 9 has 2 main sections, each of which is arranged chiastically. The chiasm, or nested repetition, is found throughout all Hebrew literature. In Psalm 9, The enemies stand in the middle of each half of the poem. The first half begins and ends with the oppressed, but the Lord stands as king and judge between the psalmist, or the oppressed, and the enemy, like a fortress protecting them. In the second half, prayer surrounds the wicked, forcing them into a trap of their own making. The enemy is the enemy insofar as they are seeking to oppress others. As one with affliction, from the same root as oppressed, David regularly includes himself in the category of the oppressed, which is why we've grouped them together here. We might conclude from this that he considers himself vulnerable. The order of the clusters of participants in this part of the poem suggests a very different story, however. The Lord himself stands between the enemy and the oppressed. In verses 2 to 4, the psalmist sings praise because, in verse 5, the Lord is a righteous judge. In verses 6 to 7, the wicked, the enemy, and the nations are the participants. In verses 8 to 9, the Lord again is judging with righteousness, which, in Hebrew, is the same as justice. And in this way, he is able to be a refuge and fortress for the oppressed in verses 10 and 11. The clusters of participants paint the picture of the Lord as a fortress, standing between the wicked and those the wicked want to oppress. At the beginning of verse 4, we also find a mention of the enemy, however, which seems to disrupt the pattern. As seen so often in this psalm, however, it was anticipated. God's name appears, buttressing the psalmist from the enemies. In the second half, God's people have a role to play of their own. Verses 12 to 15 are commands, first to sing praise, telling of all the Lord has done, and then a direct prayer to the Lord for mercy, in order that the psalmist be able to tell what the Lord has done. Next comes verses 16 to 17, in which the nations sink into a pit which they made themselves, bringing complete poetic justice. After this, in verses 18 to 19, the poet tells all about what has been accomplished, with the wicked returning to Sheol, but the poor not being ignored, and once again, a prayer to the Lord to rise up and act in verses 20 and 21. In this half of the psalm, it is the prayers of the Lord's people, both in praise and in supplication, that surround the downfall of the wicked. Poetically, those prayers are seen to cause the downfall. The prayers ask for the Lord's intervention and then tell the story of that intervention. The downfall of the wicked is precisely the story of the Lord's intervention, the answer to the prayers. This psalm depicts the wicked as those who disrupt the very order of society. This is symbolized by the interruptions in the alphabet. But there are additional stories being told simultaneously. First, the Lord remains a refuge and fortress for his people, protecting them from the wickedness of the enemy. And second, the prayers of the Lord's people are what will bring about an end to the wicked. This has been the Poetic Features video for Psalms 9 and 10, in which we explore the natively Hebrew poetic nature of the psalm. Our overview video provides a coherent interpretation of the psalm, and our exegetical issues video discusses other scholarly views. All of these videos are offered free of charge, thanks to the generosity of our donors. Please visit us at cdbr.org to learn more.